Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. It is episode 7 of the Dropkicks and Attractions podcast. I am, of course, your host with the most, the Prince of Pop Culture, Xander Invictus. And I am also here with my good, close personal friend and co-host, BigBoct. How are you, sir?
Doing well. Looking forward to starting a new job tomorrow. But before that, we've got wrestling to talk about.
Fantastic. So, and of course we are talking about wrestling today. We have the fallout of the Royal Rumble, which we covered the last episode. And so we are going to be covering Monday Night Raw of January 25th, 1993, and WCW Saturday Night of January 30th, 1993. We're finishing up January here. So we're going to open up on Monday Night Raw, where we are once again outside the Hammerstein Ballroom, and in doing research, I found out that they would actually be here off and on until 1997.
For that long?
Yeah, the actual first ever ECW invasion that happened in 97, that was actually the last time they were at the Hammerstein.
Oh, really? I had no idea.
Yeah, so Sean Mooney's outside again, apparently, because Sean Mooney's not allowed inside the building because he's only ever outside the building. Tow truck peels up, sirens are going, out pops the Repo Man, because we're promoting their week-long feud. He's going to repossess Macho Man's career like he did the cowboy hat.
And with that, we cut to the theme music.
Yep. And we come back in. Vince, Bobby Heenan, and Rob Bartlett are there to intro the show. And they are going to go over some of the superstars and matches we're going to see tonight. Vince mentions Kamala, the Bushwhackers, Savage, and Repo Man. Plus, the main event is going to be Mr. Perfect and Ric Flair in a loser leaves WWE match. Spoiler alert, we don't see the Bushwhackers at all.
Yeah, that caught me off guard when I watched this episode.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either, because I actually have memories of watching this live as a kid. Mm-hmm. So I do remember watching the main event on TV, so I know I watched this. But I was like, oh, cool, Bushwhackers. Yeah, not happened. So who knows? It's live TV. Shit happens.
Yeah, meantime, Bartlett's still talking about his car, and we still don't care.
We didn't care we didn't care the first time. So we're going to go into that first match, which is Repo Man versus Macho Man Randy Savage. This is their week-long feud. This entire thing happened over the course of a week. Of course, Repo Man comes out with the cowboy hat, the fancy cowboy hat, and Savage doesn't wait. He comes out and he jumps Repo Man during the entrance and starts just beating the crap out of him.
Yeah, Repo tries to run away early on, and Randy just doesn't even give him the chance.
Well, you don't mess with a man's cowboy hat. Have you not watched Walker, Texas Ranger?
Actually, no, I haven't, but I believe that is a show we'll get to.
Eventually, sure. So they go back and forth. Savage, got him in the ringside area, throws him back in. Repo throws Randy Savage out, but Randy Savage lands on his feet, hops back in, knees Repo to the outside. Basically, this is the majority of this match is Randy Savage.
Yeah, Savage just dominates for the vast majority of this.
Yeah, eventually, I'd say about a good halfway through, Repo's about to reverse outside and slam Randy Savage's head into the stairs before running him into the ring post. What I did nice to see during this commentary that both Bobby and Vince are just teaming up on Bartlett, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I noticed that. Bartlett doesn't say a whole bunch in this episode.
Which is a good thing. Repo's takes over, locks in a body scissors chin lock combination. Randy Savage does get up, and he catches a foot. Like, Repo goes to kick him, but Randy Savage catches the foot. We go to commercial. Mm-hmm. We come back. Repo is in charge, back in control.
He's talking trash to someone in the crowd as we fade back in.
Randy Savage does try to make a small comeback, but the Repo Man squashes him with a very short clothesline.
Yeah, Repo, then he goes for that submission a second time, can't quite get it locked in, and Randy escapes.
Basically, this is a reversal of the, I would say, almost first 2/3 of the match. Repo looks like he's going to come off the second rope. Randy Savage jumps and catches him in midair with the clothesline. Body slam, elbow drop, Macho Man wins, and he gets his hat back.
Yeah, that's a 9-minute and 4-second match, plus whatever happened during the commercial.
So, this is basically the end of the feud. Repo Man wouldn't be around much longer anyways. This is towards the end of his run as Repo Man, and just basically his WWE run. I believe he may have had a few other matches on Raw, but this was his last big spot.
Yeah, going out on his back, as you put it.
Well, yeah. And then we do see another quick ad for WrestleMania 9. It's going to be in Las Vegas at Caesar's Palace. We're on the quote-unquote road to WrestleMania.
Right.
And we come back to Kamala, who recently, towards the end of 92, turned face. He was used to be accompanied by Kimchi and Harvey Whippleman.
Mm-hmm.
And they started berating him after a match one time. Slick, the Reverend Slick comes out, who was an actual real reverend in real life.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Who recently himself turned face as a manager, who basically back in the 80s his character was basically like a hustler or a pimp. Not like a flashy, like glittery, but like a hustler street pimp style character.
Low key.
Basically. Like if you saw like old clips, you could see where it came from. But this he's a reverend. He tried to help spread positivity. Now is a good guy, and like I said, as far as I know, up until this day, he actually is a priest, I believe, or a reverend, excuse me, in Texas.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So this is his thing. He's basically trying to endear Kamala to the crowd, humanize him a little bit. Like I saw, there was humorous vignettes where he's trying to teach Kamala how to bowl. And for those that don't know Kamala, for lack of a better term, he's an African savage.
I gotcha.
This was back in the early 80s when this character was invented. The real life gentleman was actually from Mississippi.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But basically, for those that have not seen Kamala, he was a large black man in a loincloth and face paint that just went, ooh, ooh, and was just a mindless savage. So like I said, but once again, it's of the times. This was already nearly 10-year-old gimmick anyways back then, so this is of the times, but Yeah. So anyways, so he's coming up against the Brooklyn Brawler, who tries to mount an offense and jump Kamala from behind.
Yeah, it doesn't go well for him.
No. Kamala is able to get some clubbing blows, but he does miss a corner splash. And there's a spot, it's a goofy spot, but I've always found it kind of humorous when you do it in a humorous way, is when somebody tries to body slam or pick up somebody much larger than them, and they do the, oh, my back, and Brawler goes to try to body slam Kamala. Doesn't work.
I saw that.
Kamala counters with his own body slam, and of course, since he's much bigger, it's so devastating.
Yeah, just absolutely brutal.
Dodges a clothesline, but gets basically a super kick to the face, and some splashes in the corner. And Kamala goes for a spot that this was basically what, especially face Kamala was known for, but you saw heel Kamala do this, where he would roll them on their stomach and try to pin them.
Right? Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that was a Kamala thing. Because he's so stupid and so mindless, he doesn't know that, you're supposed to pin them on their back.
Oh, that's why it was doing that. Okay.
Because he's so much of a savage and doesn't know how the world works. Once again, this gimmick, it's looked on fondly later on. He would make an occasional appearances and people loved it, but this is not something you could debut now.
Yeah, absolutely not. I can see how this would bug some people even today.
Yeah, basically he was one step away from doing the tongue clicks. But it did get over. There was one times where he did have feuds with Hulk Hogan during Hulk Hogan's peak. So this was a gimmick that did get over, but once again, of the times you couldn't debut it now.
Right.
Like I said, Kamala, he's no longer with us anyways. He had severe complications from diabetes, so he's no longer with us, but the crowd was always happy to see him. This was not something that, it surprisingly aged well.
I gotcha.
So basically that's what it was. He kept rolling Brawler on his stomach. They flipped him over, rolled him again, flipped him over, rolled him again. He went for his big splash. Finally rolled him over on his stomach, on his back, got the pin.
Yeah, that's a match time of 3 minutes, 34 seconds.
Yeah, basically we're just getting Kamala over. And Vince goes in there and gets an interview with Slick. They're talking about how Slick is, hey, I'm here for the people. We're going to help make Kamala, they're going to humanize him.
Gotcha.
So we go to the legendary Mean Gene Okerlund, who gives us a short recap of the Royal Rumble, which has happened the day prior.
Yeah, Yeah, he mentioned it'll be on video on February 11th. That's a pretty good turnaround time, especially in those days.
Oh yeah, it would take a couple months, but they were able to. It would usually take a month or two to get them on VHS, and I think they were still working with Coliseum Video at the time, which was they would do the pay-per-views, and then there would always be all these compilations.
Right.
And there a lot of times these would be matches you wouldn't get on TV anyways.
I gotcha.
There's really not, honestly, there's not a lot that happens in this episode because we're already in our main event.
Yeah, and this was a great match. I'm gonna love talking about that.
Oh, absolutely. You know, this is the match I actually specifically remember watching as a kid. It is a loser leaves WWE. This is Ric Flair versus Mr. Perfect, and obviously Heenan is fully in Flair's camp.
Heenan's been talking about how much he got invested in Ric Flair the whole show.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Like he even leaves the announcer's table to go shake hands with Ric Flair. You know, we know what side Bobby's on, and he goes into full conspiracy theory as well about Perfect and how the whole company's against Flair. This is a travesty. He's full on like foil hat conspiracy.
In his mind, Ric Flair was goaded into this.
Basically, this is all Perfect's fault, blah blah blah. And so they do posturing. Like I said, I was always going to be a Ric Flair fan. Perfect was somebody when I did train in wrestling, I watched a lot of video on. He was the reason that I was trying to learn how to do a fisherman suplex. I took a lot of his stuff. This was one of my guys that everybody, like when you train, you got guys that you used to watch a lot.
I gotcha.
And I would watch stuff like early Japanese match Kurt Hennig stuff. Like, I'm talking about, this is going to throw some people. When he would have matches, I believe it was with Jumbo Tsuruta in Japan.
I have no idea who that is.
This is what I'm saying. Like, I would watch like AWA Kurt Hennig. Like, he was my guy.
I gotcha.
When I was a kid, oh, that's cool, Mr. Perfect and Ric Flair. And then when you get older, you're like, this is fucking Kurt Hennig and Mr. Perfect, or Ric Flair. This is going to be great. And it was. They start training, they do the posturing, everything like that, and then you see Bobby Heenan be subtle about it, and he tries to slip Ric Flair the hammer for the ring bell.
Yeah, he plays coy when Vince and Rob call him out on it.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. And you see that he slipped it into his jacket, he's trying to make sure his man wins. Once again, Bobby Heenan, one of the greatest managers of all time. I loved watching him. Funny thing was, he was another guy when I was doing managerial stuff I would watch, because he was great as a manager, but he was also smarmy. But then he would also get cowardly at the same time. Like, there's a lot of people that I watched studying tape in this match.
I gotcha.
They go into training chops. Flair does the famous Flair flop. Flair is able to get Mr. Perfect in the corner. Basically, we're at a standoff right now. Neither man is giving quarter to the other.
Yeah, Vince is saying basically on the commentary, somebody's going to have to take a chance at some point.
And we basically get this before we go to commercial, because Flair tosses Perfect to the floor and follows up with a chair, but not a folding chair. These are like those banquet style, like regular full-on chairs.
Yeah, that would have been nasty if that had hit.
Sure, and it was kind of funny that as we saw going to commercial, you saw the referee get on the apron and just leap off the apron to grab the chair from Flair.
Yeah, that was a good spot.
Yeah, so this is how we get in the commercial. And we come back, and Mr. Perfect is going to try to do a sunset flip as we come back from commercial. Mm-hmm. He gets flung into the corner and hits the ring post. Like a real nasty looking bump, and he's actually, Mr. Perfect's busted open.
Yeah, actually, that looked like it might have been a botch to me.
It could have been, but both these guys were really good, and
it would be uncharacteristic.
Yeah, I mean, it happens, but it's one of those, it's usually more noticeable with guys like Flair and Perfect because it didn't happen as obvious as often.
I gotcha.
I noticed a big one. I think this is about where I noticed it as well. Flair goes for a pin. He brings Perfect in, goes for a pin, gets his feet on the ropes, and the ref starts admonishing him. And there's something I noticed right away, that it's a classic heel move that you don't see a lot very often, is that while Ric Flair's on his knees, he's arguing with the ref, hey, my feet weren't on the ropes, da-da-da-da-da. His shin was in Perfect's neck.
Oh.
And they did mention this in the commentary, but if you watch this again, and like I said, you don't see this very often anymore. This is a quick, subtle heel move to where I'm going to stand there, argue with the ref on my knees. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. Blah, blah, blah. My shin's in your neck, so you can't breathe. So while I'm arguing, I'm still also not giving you time to catch your breath either.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that. That's a good catch.
Yeah, it's a classic. Once again, stuff that I wish we would do more often.
I gotcha.
Perfect's able to make a comeback. He gets a clothesline, jackknife pin. Very close 2 count.
Very close.
Ric Flair goes for a hip toss. Perfect counters that into a backslide. And there, I would say for a good almost 30 seconds, these guys fight back and forth on who gets control of the backslide.
Yeah, Mr. Perfect eventually gets it, but he only gets a 2 count out of it.
So he gets another back body drop. Perfect goes for the 10 punches in the corner. He makes it to 5. But Ric Flair goes for the reverse atomic drop. Flair rolls him up for 2. Flair goes to the outside. Perfect suplexes him in from the outside to the inside for another 2 count. Like, we're trading 2 counts very close. This is basically a very even match for the majority of it.
Yeah, right around here, Bobby Heenan says that they can't get a grip because they're so damp from sweat. Is that actually a thing, or did Heenan just make that up?
No, it could. If you notice something, like when you get sweaty and you grab something, like if you're in a ring with somebody and you're both covered in sweat, you're both exhausted because this can tire you out very quick, trust me.
Right.
And so if you're tired, you're sweaty, possibly blood like this match is involved, baby oil, you could water, you could, grab something like you go for a move, or you can grab somebody and your hands could slip because of all these factors.
Okay, gotcha.
Flair is able to lock in a sleeper hold. He has it in deep. Perfect's arm drops twice. They don't really do this a lot anymore, but if back in the day, which makes me sound old, if I would lock in some sort of submission that would cause you to pass out, or you do pass out in a submission, and your hand drops 3 times, match is over, you lose by submission.
Right.
They don't do this as much anymore. That's what I noticed. If you watch this match, there's a lot of little stuff that you really don't see on TV much anymore.
Yeah, now you've mentioned the arm drop thing. I don't remember any instances of that since I've started back in 2014.
Yeah, there's a lot of small stuff. And I'm not trying to say one's better than the other. I'm just noticing a lot of small stuff that used to be prevalent.
Yeah, it's just different.
Yeah, because it always evolves and grows. You always go forward in wrestling, you never go back. But every once in a while, it's nice to throw in sprinkles. I would like to see some of the stuff sprinkled back in.
I gotcha.
Anyways, Perfect's arm drops twice, but he's still able to get out of the hold. Drives Flair into the corner. And this is the big botch that I noticed. You might have noticed another one. This is the one I noticed. They go to look like Mr. Perfect goes to go for a leapfrog, but it doesn't look like Flair ducks fully or all the way, so they both crash to the mat.
Yeah, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, it could have been a miscommunication. Once again, they went hard for the entirety of this match, so they both could have been spent. But like I said, it's something you really didn't see with these guys. They didn't make mistakes like this very often.
Right.
But Flair, he gets Flair in a headlock. Flair quickly counters it into a back suplex and locks in his famed figure 4 leg lock. And he keeps trying to grab the ropes for leverage.
Yeah, he does that like at least half a dozen times in this sequence.
Yeah, and then it's always a spot where it's like the ref, he holds onto the rope, the ref stands up to look, and he lets go. It's like, oh no, I didn't do anything. Does it again, and then it'll usually like the ref goes in the opposite direction and he catches it.
Right.
So that's what we see here. The ref actually is like, no, break it, because you're using the ropes illegally. And Perfect catches Flair off the top. That famous Flair gets thrown off the top rope because he never lands it. Dumps him. We're going to a second commercial break.
Yeah, you don't see that ever.
This is the first time since we've covered this show that we've gone to a second commercial break on a match.
Mm-hmm.
And then we notice that back from the commercial, Flair is messing with his knee pads, pulls out some brass knuckles, and hits Perfect. Flair goes for an elbow drop, but Perfect got his foot on the rope at the last second and kicks out. He kicks out He gets the foot roll in the rope the first time, kicks out the second time. And this is something that I noticed right off the bat. Like, we're getting towards the apex of the match here.
Right.
Bartlett is speechless. Vince is like, hey, Bartlett, we haven't heard you talk this whole time. He's like, yeah, I'm speechless. And I'm like, Vince, shh. Bartlett isn't talking. Shut up.
Yeah, don't remind him that he needs to do something.
Yeah, no, shh. We're good. You and Bobby got this. And then we see, for lack of a better term, Perfect starts hulking up. He gets that adrenaline rush going. Chops. Back body drop. Clotheslines. Flair goes, it goes that upside down flip in the corner when you whip him, like the Irish whip in the corner. He does that flip over.
Yeah, that's always a cool spot.
Yeah, great spot. Once again, you're getting all of Flair's classic moments in here. Instantly runs over, climbs top rope. Perfect clotheslines him on the way down. Flair's able to stack Perfect up, go for a pin, put his feet on the ropes. Perfect kicks out 3 times. Ref sees the foot, kicks it away. Perfect, once he kicks it away, Perfect tries to roll him up, gets a quick 2 count. Flair ducks as Perfect comes off the ropes with some sort of attack. Perfect stops on a dime, spins around, locks in the Perfect plex. 1, 2, 3. Flair is out of the WWE.
And that match took almost 18 minutes, 17:58. That was insane.
Yes, longest match by far we've had on Raw at this point.
Yes.
Flair is legitimately out of the WWF. Heenan's livid. Perfect celebrating, but Flair is actually out. Flair was getting ready to leave anyways, and this was the whole classic leave on your back.
Right.
This was Flair's idea for him to go out, loser leaves WWF. He would not be back until 2001.
Wow, it took that long?
Because he would stay in WCW until the end, and then he would come back at the end of the whole invasion angle.
Uh-huh.
He would come back the night after Survivor Series 2001, which basically ended that angle. But yeah, matter of fact, we'll see what happens to Flair within the next, let me check our schedule. In about 6 episodes.
Oh, that soon.
Yeah. So, matches of the show's over. Vince does announce that one of the matches we will see next week is Doink versus Typhoon of the Natural Disasters.
That doesn't seem fair.
We'll see though. Like I said, Doink's still doing his push, his thing here.
Gotcha.
So we'll see what happens. So overall, what did you think of this? To me, this was a 1-match show.
Absolutely. There were the early couple were just felt like enhancement matches.
Basically, like once again, the Macho Man match, which don't get me wrong, love Randy Savage, been a fan since I was a kid. This match was just like, we're fighting over a cowboy hat. The feud ends in a week.
Yeah.
Nothing lost, nothing gained. The Kamala match it was, but this was a 1-match show, and it was a damn good match though.
I agree.
You can never go wrong with stuff like that.
Yeah.
But once again, the show was decent, but what's what we got. So we're going to go ahead over to WCW. We have WCW Saturday night, January 30th, 1993. We are welcomed to the show by Larry Zbyszko and good old JR. We're running down a bit of the stuff we're going to see tonight, and then they bring in the World Tag Team Champions, Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas. Shane still has the bandage on his head. He's still selling the injury he got from Clash of the Champions. And JR has mentioned that there has been a rematch signed between them and then the team of Steve Austin and Brian Pillman.
Right.
Great promo from both, where it's like they're both very hot and heated. They're ready to fight. Pillman and Austin started a war. Basically, they started it. We're going to finish it. This is very hot. Good promo from both. I think it was a good way to start the show. Get everybody hyped.
I agree. This was a good opener.
Yeah. And then we go into our first match. Chris Benoit going up against the Z-Man, Tom Zank. And of course, we get at the beginning what I expected from these guys, and I'm very happy with it. We're getting counters and chain wrestling.
Yeah, I picked up on that. Yeah, chain wrestling is always impressive when it's done right. And Larry Zbyszko says that they're both very offensive styles. And
they both were, especially Benoit. But Zank was sort of underrated with this sort of thing. Because he's not somebody that normally is... Like, he was more of the prototypical 80s high flyer, but he could still do that kind of stuff. And anybody that knows me by now, and any of their listeners know by now, You give me any of that technical chain counter European style, and it's done well. That's all I want. So, a little bit back and forth. Zank hits a really nice head scissors out of the corner, too.
Yeah, I saw that. That was good.
And then Benoit retaliates. He drops a front suplex, but it basically just drops Zank over the top rope and just abdomen against that steel cable is not going to feel good.
Yeah, they used steel cables at that time? I thought they just used rope.
Oh, no, that's always been steel cables, homie.
Oh, did not realize that. Oh, yeah, that's really painful then.
Yeah, those are steel cables, trust me. As somebody who's bounced off of them, been thrown into them, and had to take rings apart many, many, many times, those are cables wrapped in usually rubber or plastic. And then Benoit hits that snap suplex that he was known for that still looked good in 93, and it was just as good as in, 2003.
Yeah.
It looked the same. This was so crisp. Benoit takes control for the latter half of this for the most part. A lot of suplexes, backbreakers, really softening Zank up for his dragon suplex. But Zank is able to try to mount a small comeback. Hits a nice super kick. Zank had a really nice super kick and a good extension on it. Benoit fights right back. Real nice hard clothesline. Top rope drop kick. Dragon suplex. Match is over.
That was a very dense 4 minutes and 46 seconds. I know I say that a lot.
Oh, yeah. And I was talking with some people on Twitter about you notice, especially when we're doing these shows and you've, watched more than enough episodes on the show, you notice there's a big difference between what WWF was doing back then and what WCW was doing back then.
I've noticed something different between the two. I can't put my finger on it just yet, though.
Yeah, this was basically, they focused a lot more on the wrestling aspect of it, so you would get dense matches with a lot of stuff, and then you still had your gimmicks, but it was less gimmicky. But WWF still had the bright, flashy characters and the goofy stuff. They would get goofier in the coming years. This was not. Trust me, WWF's going to get even goofier.
Yeah, a comparison I made a while back was that when Lucha Underground was big, I would say that was a show about wrestling. Recent Raw was explicitly a wrestling show. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Lucha Underground was great. I was a big fan of that. But no, we won't get to the part where we get into WWF when you get the wrestling monks and plumbers and hockey players and a guy with a baseball painted on his face and rappers and yeah.
Okay.
Trust me, WWF gets goofier.
I gotcha.
So, speaking of goofy, Tony Schiavone's backstage with Max Payne, who cuts a promo. I know it's a promo. I couldn't tell you a damn thing that man said. It was so nonsensical.
The only thing I got out of it was that he had a collegiate wrestling background.
Which he did. He legitimately did have a collegiate wrestling background, but he's like, the darkness is always dark before the dawn breaks. And all this weird nonsensical,
babble.
Fear me, for I am the fear that you fear when you fear me, and you're covered in fear. I'm like, what?
It was nonsense.
No, I couldn't. I get your, but I couldn't. No.
Yeah.
So, back from commercial, we get something goofy, but in a good way. We're back from commercial.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited because what do we get again? We get the Too Cold Scorpio music video again.
It's still just as ridiculous as the first time I saw it. It's still just as
fun. It's fun.
Yes, fun is a good word.
Because we get this, and we're coming into a tag team match with Too Cold Scorpio. Him and his partner is Brad Armstrong, going up against Ron Hagen and Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker. And I noticed that Scorpio is rocking his famous Ribera Steakhouse jacket. For those that don't know, Ribera Steakhouse is a steakhouse in Japan.
Oh, really? That's an actual place.
Yeah, it's a Ribera Steakhouse is a steakhouse in Japan, and they had these jackets, and I don't know whether they were just given to them or they purchased them, or you can purchase them yourself. Basically, it was for wrestlers that went to Japan. Once you were able to get a Ribera Steakhouse jacket, that was kind of like a point of pride.
Gotcha.
That if you had one of these, you've made it. You're somebody if you're able to go to Japan and get a Ribera Steakhouse jacket. A lot of 80s and early 90s wrestlers had these.
It's a status symbol.
Very status symbol. It's one of those, okay, this is somebody important. Like, Too Cold Scorpio had one. I know the Road Warriors had them. But yeah, like up, you can still get them. But like, I don't know if they purchase them themselves or because the gentleman that runs the steakhouse is a huge wrestling fan.
Mm-hmm.
And we know how huge wrestling is in Japan.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, if you have one of these, you're somebody.
Right.
So we see that Scorpio's rocking his. Buddy Lee Parker, who was one of those that trained a lot he trained a lot of wrestlers in WCW's Racing School, the Power Plant, would go on to be one of the trainers of none other than WWF Hall of Famer Bill Goldberg.
Oh, really?
This was Buddy Lee Parker was one of Goldberg's trainers. So this is one of those guys that, he could train people. He knew what he was doing.
Right.
So he's putting some heat on Scorpio real quick, but roll up, drop kick, Scorpio does what Scorpio does, and I love it.
Oh, yeah, he goes crazy.
Yeah, and Armstrong comes in, he's just as quick as people forget that Brad Armstrong was just as quick as Scorpio, but he had a different wrestling style. He was a little bit more grounded and technical, but yeah, I would say he was just as fast as Scorpio.
They kept up with each other during this match.
Yeah, and like I said, Scorpio was fast, so for Brad Armstrong to be able to keep up with him, I was like, okay. I forgot. I remember watching Brad Armstrong. Like I said, I was watching a lot at this time. I just forgot how fast that Brad Armstrong really was. So Buddy Lee Parker tags in Ron Hagen. He gets in trouble. Once again, this is an enhancement talent match. This is what's going to happen. And they get a really cool double team move on Hagen that I've never seen before.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, so Brad Armstrong's got it in an arm wringer. Like usually when you take somebody in, they're going to do like a axe handle or a kick or some sort of move.
Right.
So what Scorpio does is he gets on the apron and he slingshots himself into like a front flip leg drop onto Hagen's arm. And I thought, I've never seen that before, and that's very cool.
Yeah, certainly looks like it would be painful, like if you need to sell the injury.
Sure, absolutely. Once again, Scorpio, pressure. He goes for a pin. Parker comes in, cuts him off. Scorpio gets a nice looking kick on Hagen. Armstrong gets the side Russian leg sweep. That was his finisher. Match is over.
And that one's 2 minutes, 49 seconds. Very quick.
Once again, this was dense too. There was a lot of stuff that happened.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, we're back from commercial. This is what we're talking about. I was so excited for you to see this. Larry and JR introduce one of the famed WCW mini movies. This was the second out of 3 of them. This was to promote the White Castle of Fear. They made a legit mini movie out of this.
This was a good 5 minutes or so, maybe?
At least.
Of glorious 90s cheeks.
Please go out of your way to find this on YouTube. Just the movie. It's been riffed to death. It's because it's goofy. It's horrible. Sting is basically flown to the Rocky Mountains to a cave. Not even a house, a cave. Where we have a bunch of ladies and a gentleman. I understand this is not the politically correct word to say, but he is credited as Cheatham the One-Eyed Midget.
Wow.
And it was a little person with an eye patch. He was in all 3 of these movies. And basically this is to promote the White Castle of Fear is going to be none other than a strap match. Strap match. And it kind of threw me that it's like, oh, this pomp and promotion. Oh, I'm going to get you, Sting. White Castle of Fear. I'm Vader. Strap match.
Yeah, it's a little underwhelming when you think about it critically.
Yeah. But if you don't think about it, it's so good.
Yeah, like I said, glorious 90s cheese.
Yes. So we go to a commercial from that, and then we come back with JR, and I'm super pumped for this. JR's introducing one of WCW's newest wrestlers, who is BigBoct.
Calls himself Steve Regal, but we know him as William Regal.
Yes! Legit, one of my top 5 all-time favorite wrestlers ever. I would put up there as one of, if not the most underrated wrestler of all time. He's making his debut. He's going to have his match next week. And oh my God,
You could gush for hours?
Yes, like if people do not understand just how good William Regal, Steven Regal, whatever you want to call him, who by the way is now, even as a manager, still active.
He's over in AEW right now, isn't he?
Yeah, he has been able to team up Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley as the Blackpool Combat Club. And I'm excited. Anytime Regal's on TV, you're going to get Ah.
Yeah, I know him mostly from his tenure as the general manager of NXT, and he did that very well.
Wait till you get to the wrestling part.
Looking forward to it.
Oh, I know this is like a 1 minute intro to him, but I could just go on about I could do full on episodes about Regal. Anyways, we go back to the action. We have another tag team match with Scotty Flamingo and Rip Rogers versus Marcus Alexander Bagwell and Eric Watts.
Oh, right. I wasn't sure what to expect from this match going into it.
I got what I expected out of it. The polite witness way of saying this is I got what I expected out of this.
Okay.
Bagwell and Flamingo to start off. They're going back and forth. Quick tags in and out by Bagwell and Watts. You can honestly see that the other three gentlemen in this ring are carrying Watts through this match.
Gotcha.
Once again, we've talked about, I don't want to, on this show, I'm trying not to speak severely ill about people.
Right.
I want to keep it somewhat respectful. However, you can tell that the other three people who are very capable, Rip Rogers is actually well regarded as a trainer after this. He's very well received as a trainer as well.
Mm-hmm.
Scotty Flamingo, we know, is Raven. He's very capable. We know about Marcus Alexander Bagwell.
Right.
So these three gentlemen are carrying Eric Watts, and if you watch it again, you can see it.
Gotcha.
Quick tags back. Basically, the first part, Flamingo is quick tags in and out between Bagwell and Watts. We're trying to keep Flamingo off his game plan. But a nice quick elbow and a double arm suplex by Flamingo onto Watts gives him that space for a tag.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, onto Bagwell, gives him space for a tag. Rogers comes in, but quickly loses that advantage, and Watts gets tagged in. He gets a couple shots in. Watts hits an interesting-looking dragon screw leg whip.
Mm-hmm.
And then Bagwell runs in, cuts off Flamingo. Watts is able to lock in his STF finisher to win.
And that's another quick match. 2 minutes, 33 seconds.
Yeah, there was not much to this match. It wasn't even very dense. It was just
there.
It was there. We'll put it that way. So we come back from another commercial. Remember, this was usually about an hour and a half, 2 hour show on the weekends.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot more on WCW Saturday Night than there is on Raw, at least for the first several years, because this is a 2 hour show. JR comes back from commercial. We get the Hall of Fame tag team, considered one of the best ever, the Rock and Roll Express, who are, as of right now, still wrestling. They have announced their retirement tour, but as of 2022, they are still wrestling. JR mentions that they had recently lost the Smoky Mountain Wrestling tag team titles to the Heavenly Bodies. They're basically saying, yeah, we're going to get those eventually. We're getting those back. We're coming for Jim Cornette. We're going to get those tag team titles back. But first, we know we got the Wrecking Crew at Super Brawl, so that's our focus right now.
We then cut to the Wrecking Crew versus Rex Cooper and Rick Ryder.
Yes, and Wrecking Crew doesn't waste any time. They just go in there and jump the other team real quick. Rage hits a huge choke slam.
Yeah, that was awful.
For 93, that was because choke slams weren't as prevalent in 93. That was a late 90s looking choke slam.
Yeah, that was vicious.
Ryder's able to dodge a corner attack, hits a quick roll up, but Fury tags in. A lot of the same power moves. Cooper tags in. Mover 2 tags right out. Wrecking Crew hits the Wrecking Ball. Over.
1 minute, 56 seconds.
Yeah, this was once again. And you saw that there was like a little picture-in-picture of Rock and Roll Express throughout this whole thing, sitting ringside, kind of strategizing. And you can always tell that moment when people are talking, when not really talking, when they're making the movements and nodding and we're making our movements and talking because we're strategizing. We're not pantomiming through this. This is what we are doing.
Right.
That's what they were doing.
I gotcha.
The fake talking and pantomiming when you're not really talking. Because they knew they were on camera.
Right.
That's what was going on. I mean, nothing against the Rock and Roll Express, but I'm just like, that's what they were doing. They weren't trying. They were like, our movements because talking.
They were making it look good.
They were making it look obvious.
Oh, obvious. Yeah, that's a good word too.
Once again, nothing against them. That's what you would do anyways. Like if you're on camera, it's acting. We're acting.
Right.
We do go to a pre-recorded interview with Tony Schiavone and the legendary Gordon Soley, who was considered to be one of the best wrestling commentators of all time.
Yeah, they refer to him as the dean of pro wrestling commentators in the interview.
Basically, this is who Jim Ross looked up to.
Gotcha.
This guy he spent a lot of time in WCW and in Florida, and he was calling stuff by himself. Like, he one of the most recognizable voices in wrestling, who very eloquently spoke about the Vader and Sting match. He gave his opinion on both. Very eloquently, well-spoken man.
Yeah, I've done commentary by myself solo for some of the speedrun stuff I do, and it is hard.
Yeah, and this guy made it look easy. And Tony said that Gordon's going to be coming back here soon to do this same pre-recorded interview, basically in Tony's spot, and they announced that Gordon's first interviewee is going to be Cactus Jack.
I'm looking forward to seeing what those two can get out of each other in an interview.
Yeah, like, Gordon is basically one of the highest... He's basically held in the highest regard, period.
Gotcha.
Like, your favorite commentator's favorite commentator, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So we come back to a commercial. Tony's now in the locker room with Barry Windham, Big Van Vader, and Harley Race. They're just there to talk about their upcoming main event they're having tonight, where it's Barry Windham and Vader are going to be going up against Dustin Rhodes and Sting.
Right.
Basically, that's all it is. Hey, we're going to kick your butt, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Great promo. Barry Windham can talk. Vader could scare the shit out of you. Harley Race could talk.
I gotcha.
Yeah, I enjoyed this. So we're going to go into our next match. Max Payne versus Johnny Gunn. And we see early on that Max Payne is using his collegiate wrestling skills very early.
Yes, I saw that. That was nice. That was nice to see that he's using those skills.
Yeah, and Gunn keeps going for quick roll-ups. He wants to end this early. He's using his speed. Max Payne's using his power and his technical skills. They go back and forth. Gunn misses a charge on the corner, hits his shoulder. Payne capitalizes on this. Locks in the painkiller armbar. Match is over.
Well, that's what that's called, the painkiller.
The painkiller, yes.
Yeah, and that was 2 minutes and 23.
Yeah, that was not much to that match.
No, that was an enhancement match.
For the most part, yeah. Tony's backstage now with Sting and Dustin Rhodes, getting their words for the match. Basically, the same interview with Barry Windham and Vader. We're just not getting the face side of it. And we noticed that Dustin Rhodes did finally get his U.S. title championship.
Yeah, Rick Rude had not wanted to relinquish the belt, correct?
Exactly. So they were basically... WCW's like, hey, give it up. He finally able to do it because this is the first time that we see Dustin Rhodes with the belt. And then we go to our penultimate match of the episode, which is the Barbarian continuing his feud with Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff. And this Orndorff tosses the rope to Barbarian and just starts throwing blows. Not hurting the Barbarian.
No, Barbarian takes over very quickly, nails a corner clothesline, and Orndorff looks like he's wobbly.
Wobbly, and then he just gets kicked right in the face.
Yep, goes right out of the ring on that one.
Yeah, and Barb's going to go right after him. Body slams him onto the concrete. Hits a couple elbow drops. Like, Barbarian is just absolutely dominating Orndorff before Paul can get his momentum back.
Yeah, he's just getting brutalized.
This is what's been called as a bowling shoe ugly match.
You're going to have to explain that one to me.
Well, because basically it's not flashy. We're not they're not technical. This is just, it's about as close as a fight as you can get.
Okay.
Without being a real fight. And that's just what the majority of this match is, like blows and clotheslines and body slams. There's nothing technical about this match.
No, it's a brawl.
And this is what these guys were known for, so this is not like something out of the ordinary.
Yeah, you're getting what you expect from these two.
Yeah, so it wasn't a bad match. It was not a pretty match. It also wasn't a bad match.
No, not at all.
Especially since we get towards the end where Barbarian hits a running power slam, a very nice running power slam, mind you. And Orndorff had his foot on the rope. Barbarian's arguing with the ref. Orndorff knees him in the back, hits a bridging back suplex, and gets the win on this.
And that's a 5-minute, 33-second match. That ending caught me off guard.
Yeah, it was a quick one. But like I said, it wasn't a pretty match, but when you get guys that this is what they're known for, I got what I wanted. I was not disappointed in this match. And we go straight into our main event of the evening, which is Barry Windham and Big Van Vader. Obviously going to be accompanied by
Harley Race
versus the United States champion Dustin Rhodes and Sting.
Right.
The crowd goes ape for Sting and Rhodes. This is the loudest pop I've heard on WCW since we started this podcast.
Yeah, that was a very loud pop.
start off with Sting and Barry Windham. It devolves very quickly. This is not a technical exchange. This just devolves very quickly.
A lot of this match is another brawl.
And given the situation and the backstory and the history between all four men, I'm not surprised.
Doesn't surprise me either.
It goes back and forth for the first couple of minutes. Sting was able to go into the corner, do the 10 punches. He got to 6 as Vader distracted the ref. Barry goes for a reverse atomic drop. Sting no-sells it and just clotheslines him and then tags in Dustin Rhodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dustin just, he goes for it.
Yeah. Oh, this was classic Dustin Rhodes. Like, when he got hot, woo, he was the king of the hot tag.
I gotcha.
So he tags in, hits a massive back body drop and clothesline before Vader tags in. Surprisingly, goes straight for Vader. He doesn't run from Vader. He doesn't stop. He goes right for Vader.
Yeah, gutsy call.
And then he ends up eating a huge clothesline and a Samoan drop on Dustin Rhodes. Vader's firm in control, tags in Barry Windham. Now, I noticed that, I believe it was JR said that when Windham hit a DDT, he went for his finishing DDT, but it wasn't. It was a normal DDT, not the implant DDT he was using as a finisher.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still learning the difference.
Yeah, that way, like, when it looked like he didn't go for the cover, the match didn't end, is because he wasn't using his variation. So it could be like, oh, it's like somebody went for a power bomb, but not their special power bomb, so it wasn't as devastating to them because it wasn't their version.
Right.
Same thing. But Rhodes went for a sunset flip as Windham hit a blind tag, and Vader hit a massive clubbing blow on Dustin Rhodes. Like, Dustin Rhodes is in there for several minutes.
Yeah, he has a lot of trouble getting to Sting to make the tag.
Yeah, and he went for, we think we're going to get the tag because Vader went for a top rope clothesline. Dustin was able to dodge, but while he was trying to crawl and he was on all fours, Vader just splashed him across the back.
Yeah, that looked painful.
And then Windham starts hitting him, raining down some super rough-looking blows, hits a gut-wrench suplex, but Dustin still kicks out. He's still in this.
Yeah, Vader tags in after that and goes for a suplex, but Dustin's able to land on his feet, but he still can't get to Sting.
No, yeah, it's like, this is, because you're sitting there, and I can tell just by the way you're describing this, you're chomping at the bit waiting for the tag, too.
Oh, yeah.
And you can tell that the crowd was. Vader hit a standing splash. Sting finally breaks up the pin. He knows that he needs to break up the pin if they want any chance to win this.
Right.
Rhodes is finally able to hit a desperation facebuster. Sting gets the hot tag, and the crowd blows the roof off this place.
Yes. Yeah, Sting comes in, and he goes nuts.
He's taking out both of them, and the crowd's going nuts. Rhodes is on the outside. He starts fighting with Harley Race on the outside as Sting hits Windham with the Stinger Splash. Sting is able to lock in the Scorpion Deathlock, but as soon as he does, Vader hits a clothesline right away. Vader goes to the outside, and we notice throughout the match and in the promo, Harley Race has a leather strap with him because we now know that the White Castle of Fear is a strap match.
Right, I picked up on that.
So we now have the leather strap in the hand. Vader jumps Rhodes on the outside, and Windham's actually able to hit the implant DDT on Sting, and then we see the difference between the DDT from earlier and then the implant DDT.
Gotcha.
He hits it on Sting, so Vader comes in with the leather strap. The ref tries to stop him. Vader just pie faces the ref, gets his team disqualified.
Yeah, the bell rings at 10 minutes, 26 seconds, but obviously we've got a bit more before this ends.
Sure, because what happens is the three heels all hold down Sting as Vader starts whipping Sting with the leather strap. The locker room empties twice, and at first when you notice the locker room empties the first time, it's all the enhancement talent from earlier in the show.
Right.
Because a lot of times when wrestlers would try to break up fights back in this time, it would usually be the enhancement talent that would break up the fight.
Gotcha.
So Vader's taking out everybody, and then here comes some more of the higher ranking wrestlers. I noticed like your Marcus Bagwell's, your Brad Armstrongs, going in there to try to help Sting. The bad guys run away. Sting's obviously in pain. He just got whipped by Vader with the strap. And this is how the show ends.
Yeah, just cut the credits.
Yes. This was a better show than Raw this week.
I agree.
And I think the main reason was there was a lot more to it.
There was more storyline. There was more there were more of the feuds that were going on, more build toward what's coming, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I get that Raw just came off a pay-per-view, and we're gradually going towards WrestleMania, but there was nothing there to further anything.
Right.
So I think by default that WCW Saturday Night, only because they had more to offer, was my pick for show of the week this week.
I'll agree with you on show of the week, but I'm going to give match of the week to the Mr. Perfect Ric Flair.
Oh, yeah, 100%. That like we talked about in the first half of the show, this was a one-match show.
Yeah.
And almost literally, because it was about half the show.
Yeah, literally, yeah, you're right. Literally about half the show.
They remember, at the time, Raw was only an hour, so they shoved everything into a half an hour, for the most part, just to give this the match.
Yeah, and I'm glad they gave the match the time it needed, because it was great.
On the flip side, it's like, well, we shoved 2 matches and all the promos and everything into 30 minutes.
Right.
So, show was Saturday night. We both are in agreement that the show of the week was Saturday night, but the match of the week was Ric Flair and Mr. Perfect.
Yes.
And like I said, we'll see Ric Flair very, very soon. So, thank you everybody for coming out for episode 7 of the Dropkicks and Attractions podcast. Next week, episode 8, we are doing our first television show. We are doing the animated series SWATcast: The Radical Squadron.
Yeah, I remember this from my childhood, but I don't remember a lot of it.
I remember watching it. I remember the characters. I didn't remember any of the episodes until I started watching it again. I'm excited to go over this. And our next wrestling episode in 2 weeks will be Raw of February 1st, 1993, and WCW Saturday Night of February 6th, 1993.
Looking forward to it.
We are on Twitter at capital D and capital A Podcast 1. We are on Stitcher. We are on Spotify. The podcast itself goes on those sites on Saturdays. We are also on YouTube, where the episode goes up every week at noon on Friday Eastern Time. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, Hover, all those sites, social media sites, at Xander Invictus.
And I can be found on social media at BigBoct.
So once again, thank you everybody for coming out, and we will see you next week for some cartoon cats and fighter jets.
Alrighty, take care, folks.